I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic community in true crime. We're getting a deeper sense of the family dynamic now that Jay's father Warren and brother Zach are at the scene in Tenerife joining the search. It's heartbreaking to hear Jay's mother, father and brother talking about the 19-year-old.
I just want him back. He's been a son, you know?
If you can put into words what the last few days have been like.
So, nightmare. It's been a nightmare. Just want him back, and that's it.
We don't know where he is, what's happened, or anything. I don't know what's happened. Honestly, I just can't. I don't know what to say.
So what is the number 2 clue we all missed? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, sensible, please like, share, leave a comment. You can also hit the thanks button and let's get started. So yeah, it is heartbreaking to hear Jay's mother, father, that's Warren, and Zach, his brother, talk about the 19-year-old. And it's not just talk. They've matched their words with action. They're actually on the island of Tenerife now, getting involved, trying to find answers on the ground, and they can't find any answers. Do you notice that we don't see Warren and Jay's mother, Debbie, in the same frame? Well, that's because they're estranged. Now, in this analysis, we're going to dip our toes into the stormy seas of the social media froth surrounding this case. We're going to deal with other aspects as well, but we're also going to go there and start to deal with that aspect. And when we do, this raises the importance of the second clue we all, or perhaps many of us, missed. Now, in order to go in that direction, have you ever walked with Google Maps? Now, to review what we know, Jay was staying in Los Cristianos, which is in the south of the island, and he attended a concert nearby, also in the south. But then they traveled north, completely out of Los Cristianos, to a remote village called Masca in the north. This village has a similar triangular-shaped coastline or peninsula, which may have made Jay think that he was still in Los Cristianos or at least somewhere in the south. Now, probably Jay used Google Maps to navigate, most of us would, depending on whether he had a signal. Even if he did, Google Maps is frustrating to use as a pedestrian. Have you ever used it to try to navigate in a city? I did it not that long ago in Manhattan. I did it also in Boulder. It seems to rotate around itself, and so it's easy to walk in the wrong direction. If Jay had low battery power, he may have consulted Google Maps and then turned off his phone. I've done that often for the same reason. If sometime later he turned his phone on only to discover he was now further from his destination than when he started, he may have been tempted to leave the road, either in search of a shortcut or for sustenance or both. And that is how I think he got that cactus injury to his leg that he mentioned. Now have a look at the map. Notice how symmetrical this island is. It's almost a mirror image of itself going from north to south or south to north. The shape of the island on the one end is just very, very similar. I also remember very well while covering the Kylie Rodney case. That's a case that happened near Reno, but actually just inside California near a place called Truckee. For at least a week, almost everyone was interpreting the map of Prosser Lake incorrectly. Almost everyone thought that the site of the party was somewhere when it was actually somewhere else. And then when it turned out Kylie had simply taken a wrong turn, where she'd interpreted her surroundings incorrectly, no one could accept it. Our short memories are. All of us had made the same mistake looking at the same map and misread it, but no one could think that she could have done that. So what is the number 2 clue we all missed? Well, it's the fact that Jay stayed the night after the rave, and here it is, in a remote Airbnb in the village of Masca. Did he know it was remote? Did he book it? Now, the thing with remote asymmetrical locations in the wilderness is that they're a lot like the inside of casinos. There are little to no reference points. There are no anchor points because everything looks the same. So you have no idea where you are. And so, do you mind if I share my experience a few weeks ago booking a hotel on booking.com instead of Airbnb booking.com? Do you mind if I share that? Okay, so I was in San Francisco. My plan was to head to Yosemite, and then I chose to stay in Shaver Lake. And my final destination was in Bakersfield, which is basically south of San Francisco and Yosemite. And that would be where I would give the rental vehicle back, and a friend would pick me up. I made a complete mess of my trip. Why? Because when I did a search for accommodation in the Yosemite area, one option that came up from booking.com was Shaver Lake. So I assumed it was nearby. And so I booked it without checking, only to find out Shaver Lake was nowhere near Yosemite. It was about 2 hours drive south on windy, twisty, undulating roads. It was a big mistake. I ended up driving 2 hours south away from Yosemite, driving those same 2 hours north again, and then driving south again to get to Bakersfield, basically wasting about 6 hours in total. Why did it happen? How did it happen? Well, I had a bad cough. I was under an unusual amount of stress, and yes, I was in an unfamiliar environment. Well, the same thing may have happened with Jay and Jay's booking. Like me, he probably chose accommodation in Muscat for 2 reasons, or whoever did chose it for 2 reasons. It was cheaper, and everything that was available closer to the venue was sold out. And perhaps he simply assumed it was nearby. The number 2 clue we all missed, and the clue Jay missed, was this one: how remote his accommodation was, just as how remote mine was to Yosemite. He didn't realize it probably until it was too late. And this is really the original error, that he booked accommodation, or someone else did, and he ended up going to a remote Airbnb only to have to return. He obviously had no idea just how remote it was. And that brings us to the social media shitstorm. It's interesting just how predictable social media is becoming at scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to high-profile cases. It feels like we live in a society that is like a moral wasteland. You know, it's all in the name of something good. We're looking for someone, we're trying to find justice, and yet the way it's done is so tawdry and unacceptable. And makes you wonder, you know, do people not know how to think rationally about a case, or are they simply, I'm talking about the creators now, the social media folks trying to shape the narrative, are they just too tempted to spin and manipulate to make as much money through shock value because the real story's not going to cut it? And unfortunately, there's a huge gullible audience out there primed and ready to be mind-fucked. Why? Well, because many are programmed as it is on a daily basis by not terribly well-educated or sensible populace, some with audiences around 6-7 million. One of those was recently demonetized on YouTube, but why let that stop you? It's also far from harmless fun. According to one article, 55-year-old Debbie Duncan, that's Jay's mother, told Mail Online that vile social media users have been comparing her to Karen Matthews, basically accusing her of staging the whole thing. I'm sure there are a lot of people that like that idea. I'm sure there's a lot of shock value and sensational in watching that. Does it matter that it's not true? Karen Matthews was the mother who was behind the fake kidnap of her own daughter, 9-year-old Shannon Matthews, in 2008. Now, the other side of the fake social media coin are fake sightings. That's something that also happens every time you have a high-profile case. How many fake sightings were there in the Madeleine McCann case? I think thousands. And so Ms. Duncan has claimed that police are investigating possible new sightings of Jay Slater, and then that, of course, turned out to be not true, and so did the other one. And so, on a final note, is the fact of Jay's parents being estranged relevant at all? If it is, it's hard to say how and why exactly, but we know a similar dynamic occurred with Amanda Knox, Sebastian Rogers in Tennessee, and Gabby Petito. That there was a bit of a broken up family situation, and does that have an impact on things like decision making, impulsivity, recklessness, naivete? What do you think? I'm not going to take it further than that. In our next analysis, we'll deal with the Instagram. Is the Instagram a sign that there's been foul play? After all, there's been numerous logins by someone other than Jay. What is going on there? We'll look at that in the next analysis. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.